Hey everybody, welcome back to another fun and exciting Algebra 1 class. Today, I want to do just a couple things before we get started. I want to just review just a little bit about the things that we've talked about in the last couple lessons, and then get into today's lesson just a little bit. So we've been talking about inequalities. Basically, so far what we've covered was that inequalities and equalities, or equations, are solved basically the same way. So we are going to just move things to the other side by doing the opposite sign. Like if it's subtract 3, we're going to add 3 to the other side. We're going to get rid of the 3 that way. And basically we handle them the same way until the very end of the process. And then we have to put them onto the number line. And we talked about how to do that. We talked about the open and close dot. Make sure that you remember those things. If you need any help, you can always go back and watch one of the previous videos on that. But just kind of wanted to start real quick, just reviewing over the first couple lessons in this chapter. Because today what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be pointing out the only difference, the only change when you're doing inequalities. So remember, equalities and inequalities, they're different. One has an equal sign and one has the greater than, the less than, potentially, or the less than or equal to, or greater than or equal to sign. Well, in the book, we're on page number 133. This is chapter 4, lesson number 3. Chapter 4, lesson 3, page 133. And the very beginning of the chapter kind of starts talking about what they call the multiplication property of an inequality. The multiplication property of the inequality. Okay, so let's look at this example here. We have x over 2 is greater than 6. And again, in this first step, we're not going to change anything. We're going to do this the exact same way that we've been doing the equalities. And so basically, we're going to pretend like that's an equal sign, and we're just going to solve the equation. Well, in this case, we're dividing by 2, so we're going to have to use the multiplication property, which would say we have to multiply by 2. We have to do the opposite of what's going on. And remember, if we do it to one side, we also have to do it to the other side. So we're going to have to also multiply this by 2. So what's going to happen is that's going to cancel, okay? And we're going to end up with x is greater than 6 times 2, or x is greater than 12. And then we're going to do it the same way that we've been doing it. We're going to draw our number line, and I'm just going to kind of put a 0 here, and I'm going to put a 12 here, because that's the key number here. That's the critical number. And then we'll go here, and do we circle it or do we color it in? Okay, if you remember from previous lessons, we are going to circle it. We're not going to color it in because this is not equal to. So we're just going to circle it. And now we have to figure out which way to draw our line. So we would come over here to the x, and we would say, we could substitute in, we could call this 13. 13 is greater than 12. Well, that's true. So because 13 is greater than 12, we are going to color in the greater than part of this line. Now, I always like to test the other one just in case. Let's test 0. Let's test the left side of this line. 0 is greater than 12. Well, no, that is not true. So we would not color in the left side, only color in the right side. Okay? And right now you're thinking, I thought you said we were going to do something that like changes what we've been doing. That looks exactly like what we've been doing. I know, okay? But there is this next step. This is where the change comes in. So if we go to this next one, we'll have, and I'm on page 134 right now in your book, 134. If I have negative 3x is greater than 6. I don't like that greater than sign. There we go. That's a little bit better. Now, every time we multiply or divide by a negative number, not add or subtract a negative number, multiply or divide a negative number. This is very important. Every time we do that, we're going to have to do something to this sign right here. And the trick is we have to take that sign and we have to flip that sign. You'll see what I mean in just a minute. So if we take this negative 3x and we're trying to get rid of the negative 3, so what would we do? Well, we would divide by negative 3. As soon as you take that negative 3 over here to this side and you divide this side by negative 3, as soon as you're taking that negative sign, that division by a negative or multiplication by a negative, you have to take this sign and flip it. It was greater than, now it's going to be less than. So we have to take that sign and flip it. Well, obviously this is going to cancel, and we're now going to get x is less than negative 2. X is less than negative 2. You say, well, wait a second. No, we had a greater than, and we had to flip it because, why? Because we are dividing by a negative number. When you divide or multiply by a negative number, you have to flip that sign. That's really the only trick to this lesson. Everything else in this lesson, we're going to do exactly the same we've been doing it. The only trick, the only thing we have to do a little different is flip the sign. So what we would do now is we would come down to our number line. We draw our number line, and I'll put 0 here, and I'll put negative 2 right here. And remember, that's our critical number, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to circle negative 2. Now, do we color it in? No, because it's not equal to, it's just less than. And so now we're going to come over here and we're going to test our points. Again, this is important that you pick a point and you test the point. So let's pick 0. We'll pick this one since it's on the right side. We'll say 0 is less than negative 2. Is that true? No, it's not. And so we're not going to color in the right side. We'll come over here and we'll pick a number. We'll just pick negative 3. Negative 3 is less than negative 2. That is true. And so we are going to color in that left-hand side of the number line. And that will tell us that all of our solutions going to the left, every single number going to the left. Negative 4, is it a solution? Yes. Negative 10, is it a solution? Yes. Any number to the left of our number, which was negative 2, that's our critical number. Any number to the left is going to be a solution. And again, it's a little tricky, but the only tricky part right there is flipping the sign. So it was greater than, but because we divided by a negative number, it flips the sign, okay? And it takes that sign and turns it over. It was greater than, now it is less than. All right, let me show you one other one that can sometimes be just a little bit tricky, and that is this guy right here. The next example is 5x is greater than or equal to negative 25. Now, you might say, oh, we've got a negative sign. I'm going to have to flip my sign. Well, careful. I worded it a certain way because I wanted you to see this. What do we have to do to get x by itself? Well, it's multiply by 5, so we have to divide by 5. Now, we are not dividing by negative 5. We are dividing by 5. So we do not flip. We do not flip our sign. The only time we flip our sign, look up here, I divided by a negative 3. Okay? When I divide by a negative, I flip. Here I'm dividing by 5, and you say, no, look over here. There is a negative sign right there. I know there is, but we are not dividing by a negative. We are dividing a negative, but we are not dividing by a negative, okay? So we would just divide this out like normal, so this would come out, that would cancel, so we're going to get x. We'd leave the sign the same, greater than or equal to, and that would give us negative 5 over here. And so then we would go ahead and graph our line, and we would put negative 5. I'll put a 5 over here. We'll test some different points. Maybe I'll put a negative 6 over there so we can test it. Okay, so let's go ahead and test a point. And remember, this is our critical number, so let's circle our critical number. Do we fill in our critical number? Yes, we do. Why? Because it is greater than or equal to. So we've got to fill this guy in. Okay, so that's our starting point. And now we're going to say which way does it go, left or right? Well, let's test. Let's try -6. -6 is greater than or equal to -5. No, -6 is less, it's left. Okay, so that's not going to work over there. And now we can test this side. We'll just plug in 0. 0 is greater than or equal to -5. Yes, 0 is greater than -5. So we would go to the right on this one. Okay? And those are the solutions there. Make sure you remember how to do the open and close dot. Make sure you remember how to test the points. And really the only change in this lesson is now if we ever multiply or divide by a negative number, when we multiplied or divided by -3, in this case we divided by -3, we had to flip that sign. That was a greater than, now it becomes a less than. So, okay. Alrighty, well, I hope you learned something today. If you didn't, if you don't know what you're doing still, you can always go back and rewind that video, watch those examples a few more times and try to get this, and then do some of these practice problems, okay? Alright, we'll see you later. Have a good one. Bye-bye.